CNN Presents, a weekly news magazine, continues now with The Investigators. Once again, here's Judy Woodruff.
Imagine trying to protect your children only to find them taken away. That's what may be happening in courtroom cases that have only recently come out of the shadows. Cases where child abuse is charged. Kathy Slobogin looks at courtroom battles where parents who report their children have been sexually abused find themselves on trial.
Do you think the fact that you reported abuse hurt you in the custody fight?
Oh, God, yes. I would have never lost my daughter. Never.
This woman, we'll call her Laura to protect her child, is only allowed to see her 8-year-old daughter for 2 hours a week. By court order, they are watched every minute they're together. Even their phone calls are monitored. Such severe restrictions would not be unusual for a convicted child abuser. Only Laura has never been charged with abuse.
What have you been accused of?
Nothing. Been accused of a mom that fought to protect her child and wouldn't shut up.
Laura, who lives outside Denver, is one of a growing number of parents, mostly women, accused of having an emotional disorder called PAS, Parental Alienation Syndrome. The idea is that one parent caught up in a custody battle programs children against the other parent, even fabricating charges of sexual abuse.
And I think both of these parents, in many respects, are selfish.
Collectively, they're doing damage to this child because of their inability to relate.
Have great difficulty communicating with one another.
Parents using their kids to hurt each other is nothing new. What is new is the PAS label, a label that allows judges to punish the accusing parent as the villain.
How do I protect the child but get mom and dad out of...
Mothers said to have PAS have been fined, jailed, even barred from ever seeing their children again. Laura has had only supervised visits with her daughter for nearly 4 years.
I'm not a mother. I can't be a mother. You're not allowed to go to her school. I taught her how to swim when she was 2. I've never seen her in her swim meets, her ballet, Christmas, her grades. I've never even seen her grades.
PAS is controversial, splitting the experts. Some say that a diagnosis of PAS gives judges license to ignore evidence of sexual abuse, even the child's own report. Critics say the PAS label can be misused against parents legitimately trying to protect their children. They say it's become the defensive choice for child abusers, punishing the accusers and silencing the children.
The man behind PAS is Dr. Richard Gardner.
It's not a rare phenomenon. It's quite common.
Gardner, a Columbia University psychiatrist known for his innovative work on children of divorce, coined the term parental alienation syndrome. He says it usually arises when a mother, afraid of losing custody, uses false accusations as a weapon.
In about 90% of cases, it's the mother who is the programmer and the father who is the victim of the campaign.
We'll proceed to opening statements.
Gardner has aggressively promoted his ideas through books and lectures, ideas that have taken hold in courtrooms across the country.
Madam Guardian ad litem.
Yes, Your
Honor. I consider myself an expert on sex abuse hysteria. I consider myself an expert on the PAS.
I have a lot of different...
By now, Laura also considers herself an expert on PAS.
Notice of hearings. I spent 6 years of my life fighting with everything I had. You're up against a whole group of people that believe in his theories, and you don't get out of it.
Laura divorced her husband and won custody of her baby daughter 8 years ago. But the father had visitation. When the child was 2, she started acting out sexual behavior, saying her daddy touched her and having nightmares.
She'd arch her back off the bed and screaming out in the middle of the night, "No, Daddy, don't. Owie, owie, it's bad."
Laura called the county social services. One psychologist there didn't believe the child and felt Laura had coached her. But a second psychologist concluded the child, quote, has either been sexually abused or has been exposed to sexual stimuli. Social services took that psychologist off the case. A new therapist believed the father was innocent, and the child's court-appointed attorney accused Laura of having PAS.
possibly some old press.
It later turned out the attorney had paid PAS author Richard Gardner as a consultant on the case. And over the next few years, Laura, not the father, was seen as the problem.
The more I fought, the more time she got with her father. The more information came out on abuse, the more time she got with her father.
Once Laura raised questions of abuse, she lost battle after battle in the courtroom. In 1991, Laura lost custody. A year later, she was reduced to supervised visits. The father, who declined to talk to us, consistently denied the abuse.
When the child was 2 years old.
Judges dismissed the sexual abuse charges, saying Laura, quote, admitted no credible evidence. They criticized her for her, quote, unceasing efforts to validate her beliefs, and said she was harming the child.
How could this happen? It's always difficult to determine the truth in cases like this one, but judges were apparently swayed by professionals who didn't believe the child was abused, especially by this report by two court-appointed psychologists who cited PAS author Richard Gardner. The psychologist suggested that Laura had PAS and that her focus on abuse was harming the child. They insisted there was no evidence of sexual abuse. But we have found a trail of people and medical reports that tell a different story.
Masturbating. She would sit in a chair and fondle herself and tell the other little children that this is what Daddy does.
Ruth Gibbens was the child's babysitter from the time she was 2. She says she saw a happy, well-adjusted child suddenly start to display frequent sexual behavior, several times with another little boy in her daycare.
Had her pants down and trying to get him to put his penis and saying, do this is what Daddy does.
Is there any doubt in your mind that this child was sexually abused by her father?
There's no doubt in my mind at all.
Do you have any doubt in your mind that this child was sexually abused by her father?
No, I don't.
Kelly Stewart was the child's preschool teacher from the time she was 4. She, too, heard the child describe abuse. She became concerned when the child came to school with a foul odor and asked her to change her underwear.
Can you describe what you thought was in the underwear?
It was a discharge, and it was like it had the smell of sperm or semen.
Both Stewart and Gibbens testified in court, but judges dismissed their evidence. Laura herself took her child to several hospitals because of a persistent discharge. Hospital reports show that each time the child repeated her story of abuse. Finally, at Denver's Children's Hospital, the examiner found physical changes that worried her.
The opening to the vagina was bigger, and the area around the tissue was abraded or worn away. And there was a vaginal discharge that had been there for quite some time.
What was your conclusion?
Some type of inappropriate sexual contact had occurred with this child.
Did she seem coached or rehearsed?
No, she did not.
How many people did your child tell her story to?
Oh, that's the saddest part of all. She told doctors, she told policemen, she told social workers, she told her preschool teachers, she told my family and friends. She told everybody.
We couldn't all be coaxing the child. There's something the child was saying that was true. There had to be.
The two psychologists who found no sexual abuse, Leona Kopetsky and Claire Purcell, wouldn't talk to us. Their report concluded the father had a healthy relationship with the child, that he couldn't have abused her. Despite their access to all the medical reports, they claimed that their conclusion was the same as all other professionals consulted in the case.
Are there other professionals out there who feel this child was sexually abused?
Most definitely. Our opinion was never asked. Not one of us has ever testified.
Laura remains virtually shut out of her child's life until her ex-husband and court officials think she's cured of her beliefs. Laura has given up the idea that she can ever protect her child from abuse.
I don't want to know about the abuse. I don't even want to discuss the abuse. My word to other mothers out there is don't even bring it up. because you lose your child, and I just want a relationship with her. I want to be a part of her life. That's all I'm asking.
Next, we'll talk to the man behind PAS, Dr. Richard Gardner.
When we continue, is Dr. Gardner a champion of the innocent, or can his theories obscure the truth?
I am a threat to prosecutors because they they fear me, they hate me, because when I'm on the witness stand, I'm very powerful.
When a parent accuses a spouse of sexually abusing their children, which side do you believe? That's at the heart of the emotional disorder we've been examining called parental alienation syndrome. Kathy Slobogin continues now with a look at the man behind the syndrome, Dr. Richard Gardner.
When she was on the witness stand, did you see the side of her face or the back of her head?
Dr. Richard Gardner is a one-man antidote to what he calls sex abuse hysteria. He has testified in sex abuse cases in more than 20 states.
You will have a right to face your accuser in a court of law.
We found him giving legal advice to an alleged abuser.
Had she been seated in such a way that she could not see your face, then your lawyer would have an appealable point on that.
Gardner makes as much as $400,000 a year from his court testimony and consultations. By his own admission, in 90% of the cases, he testifies there has been no sexual abuse.
I am a threat to prosecutors because they they fear me, they hate me, because when I'm on the witness stand, I'm very powerful.
Gardner has campaigned for convicted child molesters he feels are innocent.
But I'm not a hired gun. I call the shots as I see them. Sometimes I say it's true, and sometimes I say it's false.
Yes.
Gardner condemns pedophilia, but his books also contain statements like, quote, all of us have some pedophilia within us, and, quote, we have to develop much more pity than scorn for the pedophile. But it's Gardner's work on parental alienation that disturbs many child abuse experts.
I think there's a great deal of concern about Dr. Gardner's ideas, his publications, his formulas. He's not done any systematic research to test his idea, to see whether it's one that really is useful, and that there's a real danger when somebody just kind of goes promulgating their own ideas without subjecting them to research.
Gardner himself admits that his theories aren't based on any scientific or clinical research, just his experience. His work on parental alienation isn't reviewed by peers. He publishes it all himself. What bothers his critics is that his theories form the basis for drastic punishments in many courtrooms. You have recommended things like fines and jail sentences for mothers who don't come around.
Weekends in jail, a day in jail, just as a reminder to cut it out. You're destroying these children.
Gardner believes children are badly damaged when one parent vilifies the other. In extreme cases, he has even recommended separating a PAS parent and child for several years.
Never, never, never give up.
But we found in some cases, court sanctions go even further.
Even though we cannot be together right now, Mommy wants you to know that I love you more than anything in the world.
These are the last words Catherine Andrews' children have from their mother. She's not seen her son and daughter for 2 years. All she has left are treasured drawings, a few leftover clothes. She faces jail if she comes within 100 feet of her children. Her crime? PAS.
And you've never been convicted of neglecting them or abusing them or charged with any kind of abuse?
Kathy, I've never had a parking ticket in my whole life. I've never had a speeding ticket.
Catherine Andrews was divorced 6 years ago when her children were 5 and 7. Like many women charged with PAS, when her children told her their fathers sexually abused them, she believed them. So did a school assistant principal, a police detective, and a psychologist.
I thought the children were telling a story that seemed valid to me. I mean, they did not seem coached. They seemed to me to be telling an honest story, and so I was quite disturbed.
But the father, who wouldn't talk to us, denied the abuse. A court-appointed evaluator with a degree in home economics did not believe the children and thought Catherine Andrews had PAS.
The parties of the child.
In a jury trial, her parental rights were terminated.
What do you think of the outcome of this case?
I was, quite honestly, appalled. I testified in the final trial, and when I heard what the verdict had been, I really couldn't believe it at first. I thought someone was kidding me about it.
For a time, my children really believed, because I told them if they told the truth, that eventually somebody would listen. And, you know, I feel real guilty about that, because I said that if you keep telling the truth, that somebody's going to listen.
What if you're wrong?
Every physician who's ever been practicing medicine must think about the possibility. We all have to recognize that we may be wrong.
My favorite thing about you is that you always have time to help me when I need help.
Gardner himself says that outright termination of a mother and child's relationship can be harmful. Although he wasn't directly involved in this case, his ideas were.
And I'm not their mom anymore.
But he says he can't be responsible if people misapply those ideas.
Be there for them.
You know in advance, if whatever your contribution, that people are going to misuse it. I'm not going to lose sleep over it because it's predictable.
Just remember, my darling angel, every time you get sad, remember how much Mommy loves you. And
Catherine Andrews has appealed her case, but she may never see her children again.
If you really want something, never, never, never give up.
Parental alienation syndrome, for her, may carry a life sentence.
Just like your mom. I know you will, and I will make it through this just fine.